Have you ever noticed how the room goes quiet when you share good news? Not the comfortable silence of admiration, not the warm pause before celebration, but that cold, heavy silence, the kind that sits in the air like smoke after a fire. You just landed your dream job, you bought your first house, you launched a business, you fell in love, and the people who were supposed to cheer the loudest say nothing. Their smiles feel thin, like paper stretched too tight. Their congratulations arrive late, forced through gritted teeth, and suddenly, the friends who used to text you every day haven't called in weeks. What happened? You didn't change. You didn't become arrogant. You didn't abandon anyone. You just succeeded. And somehow, that was enough to turn their warmth into ice. Here's the truth that no one wants to admit. People don't hate your success because they think you don't deserve it. They hate it because it forces them to confront what they haven't achieved themselves. Your victory becomes their mirror, and most people would rather break the mirror than look at their own reflection. This isn't about jealousy in the way we usually understand it, petty and small. This is something deeper, more primal, more devastating. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche called it resentiment, a silent, festering resentment that grows in the hearts of those who feel powerless to change their own lives. And your success? It's the match that lights that fuse. So let me ask you again, have you ever been celebrated and abandoned at the same time? Have you ever felt more alone at the peak than you did in the valley? If so, you're not crazy, you've just become a mirror. And today, we're going to understand why that mirror is so unbearable for the people around you. We're going to explore the hidden psychology of envy. We're going to uncover why your closest friends sometimes become your coldest critics. And most importantly, we're going to learn how to navigate this painful reality without dimming your light or losing yourself in the process. Because here's what I've learned. The loneliest moment in success is not when you fail, it's when you win and realize the people you wanted to celebrate with are no longer standing beside you. Part 1. The hidden mechanism, the psychology of envy. Let's start with something uncomfortable. Envy is hardwired into human nature. Not the healthy kind, the kind that inspires you to work harder, to reach higher. I'm talking about the toxic kind. The kind that Nietzsche understood better than almost anyone. He saw that beneath the surface of morality, politeness, and friendship, there existed a dark undercurrent, a psychological mechanism he called resentment. Resentment is not just envy. It's envy mixed with impotence. It's the feeling of being stuck, powerless, unable to change your circumstances, and then seeing someone else break free. It's the rage of the person who has convinced themselves that success is impossible, only to watch you prove them wrong. And here's the cruel part. They can't admit it. Not to you, not even to themselves. Because to admit envy is to admit inadequacy. To confess that your success bothers them is to confess that they've failed. So instead, they bury it. They go silent. They withdraw. They find subtle ways to diminish what you've accomplished. Oh, you got promoted? Must be nice to have connections. You started a business? I guess some people are just lucky. You're in a new relationship. Well, let's see how long it lasts. Every dismissal is a defense mechanism. Every slight is a shield against their own shame. Nietzsche observed this pattern everywhere, in religion, in politics, in relationships. He saw how the powerless cope with their powerlessness, not by rising, but by redefining the game. They create new rules, new moralities, new ways to make your success look like a moral failure. You didn't earn it, you got lucky. You're not happy, you're superficial. You're not strong, you're selfish. This is how envy protects itself, by turning your light into something ugly. But let's go deeper. Let's understand the mechanics of this transformation, how applause curdles into resentment, how celebration transforms into silence. In Nietzsche's view, human beings are driven by what he called the will to power, not power over others necessarily, but power over oneself, the ability to create, to overcome, to become. When someone succeeds, they demonstrate this will to power in action. They prove that change is possible, that transformation is real, that the excuses we tell ourselves are just that, excuses. And for those who have surrendered their own will to power, who have accepted their limitations as permanent, who have made peace with mediocrity, your success is an existential threat. Because if you could do it, then they could have done it too. And that means every day they didn't try, Every opportunity they let pass, every dream they abandoned, all of it was a choice. Their stagnation wasn't fate, it was a decision. And that realization is unbearable. So they protect themselves the only way they know how, by reframing your success as something other than genuine achievement. They strip it of its meaning. They diminish its value. They find ways to prove that what you did doesn't count, or wasn't that hard, or came at too high a cost. Because if your success is illegitimate, then their failure is justified. This is the core mechanism of resentment. It's not just "I wish I had what you have." It's what you have isn't really valuable, and the fact that you have it proves you're morally inferior to me. It's a complete inversion of values. A psychological sleight of hand that allows the envious person to maintain their self-image while dismissing your achievement. And the most insidious part? They genuinely believe it. They've convinced themselves so thoroughly that their narrative becomes their reality. They're not lying to you, they're lying to themselves. And they've done it so well that they can't see the lie anymore. Part 2. How it manifests. The signs of silent envy. So how do you recognize it? How do you know when applause has curdled into envy? The signs are subtle, insidious, easy to miss if you're not paying attention. Envy rarely announces itself. It doesn't walk into the room with a sign around its neck. It slips in through the back door, disguised as concern, as humor, as busy schedules and changing priorities. Let me walk you through the patterns, the behaviors, the telltale signs that someone in your life has crossed from genuine friendship into silent resentment. First, the delayed reaction. When you share your good news, there's a pause, a split second too long. You can feel them recalibrating, searching for the appropriate response. Their congratulations feels rehearsed, like they had to remind themselves to say it. It's polite, but hollow. You can feel the effort it took. There's no spontaneous joy, no excitement in their voice. Just a mechanical acknowledgement that something good happened to you, delivered with all the warmth of a customer service script. And you notice it. You feel it in your body, that slight deflation, that tiny voice that says, "They're not really happy for me." But you push it down. You tell yourself you're being paranoid, oversensitive, reading too much into things. Except you're not. Second, the qualified compliment. They congratulate you, but there's always a but. "That's amazing, but don't burn yourself out. I'm so happy for you, but be careful not to chain. Congrats, but I hope you still have time for us." Every compliment comes with a barb. Every celebration has a condition. They can't just let you have the moment. They have to attach a warning, a concern, a subtle suggestion that your success comes with hidden costs. And notice the framing. It's always about what you might lose, never about what you've gained. It's about the dangers of success, never the triumph of achievement. It's about protecting you from yourself, as if success were a disease you needed to be cured of. This is control disguised as care. It's an attempt to keep you tethered to their level, to remind you that rising too high is dangerous, that staying small is safe. Third, the sudden distance. They stop reaching out. Texts go unanswered for days, then weeks. Invitations are declined with vague excuses. They're not angry, at least, not overtly. They're just busy, always busy. And slowly, without announcement, they fade from your life. You try to maintain the connection. You reach out more. You suggest getting together. You ask if everything's okay. And they reassure you that yes, everything's fine. They're just swamped. They've got a lot going on. They'll definitely catch up soon. But soon never comes. And eventually, you realize they're not busy. They're avoiding you. Your presence has become uncomfortable. Your success is a constant reminder of something they don't want to face. So they create distance, not enough to call it a breakup, but enough that they don't have to witness your growth anymore. Fourth, the minimization. They shrink your achievement. They find ways to make it seem smaller, easier, less impressive. Yeah, but that field is pretty easy to break into. Anyone could do that with enough money. Must be nice not to have responsibilities like the rest of us. They frame your success as something trivial, something that doesn't count, something that required no real effort or sacrifice. They strip away the struggle, the risk, the courage it took. They reduce your journey to a lucky break, a privileged position, an advantage they didn't have. And here's the trick. There's always a kernel of truth in what they say. Yes, you had some advantages, Yes, timing played a role. Yes, luck was involved because luck is always involved in success. But by focusing exclusively on the external factors, they erase your agency. They make it seem like you were just a passive recipient of good fortune, rather than someone who worked, sacrificed, and bet on themselves when it was terrifying to do so. Fifth, the nostalgic trap. They reminisce about the past, back when you were struggling, back when you were more relatable, back when you were one of them. Remember when we used to complain about our jobs together? Those were good times. You were so different back then, so down to earth. I miss the old you, the one who had time for simple things. What they're really saying is, I preferred you when you were small. I liked you better when you needed me. Your growth feels like abandonment. They've confused your evolution with betrayal. They've decided that success has changed you not because you've actually changed, but because their relationship to you has changed. You're no longer in the same struggle. You're no longer defined by the same limitations. And that feels like loss. So they try to pull you back. They romanticize the past. They suggest that happiness lived in those struggling days, that authenticity requires suffering, that success has cost you something essential about who you are. It's a trap, a subtle form of manipulation that asks you to stay stuck so they can stay comfortable. Sixth, the passive sabotage. They don't celebrate your wins publicly. They don't share your announcements. They don't promote your work. And when others ask about you, they offer faint praise laced with doubt. Yeah, they're doing well, I guess. We'll see how it goes. They won't actively tear you down. That would reveal their envy too obviously. But they won't lift you up either. They'll just let you drift. Let your achievements go unacknowledged. Let your efforts fade into silence. And if you call them out on it, they'll act confused. What do you mean? I'm happy for you. I just don't think we need to make a big deal out of everything. But here's the thing. They made a big deal out of everything when you were struggling. Your problems were worth discussing. Your complaints were valid. Your pain deserved attention. It's only your success that doesn't warrant celebration. Seventh, the redefinition of success. Perhaps most insidiously, they begin to redefine what success means conveniently in a way that excludes what you've achieved and includes what they value. If you got wealthy, they'll talk about how money doesn't buy happiness, how the rich are miserable, how true wealth is in relationships and experiences. If you got fit, they'll talk about how obsessing over appearance is shallow, how real beauty is internal, how health culture is toxic. If you got promoted, they'll talk about how corporate success is empty, how climbing the ladder means selling your soul, how real fulfillment comes from simple living. Notice the pattern. Whatever you achieved becomes redefined as worthless or harmful. The goalposts shift, the values change. And suddenly, your success isn't success at all. It's a mistake, a compromise, a Faustian bargain. This is Nietzsche's transvaluation of values in action. Unable to achieve what you've achieved, they create a new moral framework where their position is superior and yours is inferior. Part 3. The metaphor. You are the mirror. Let me offer you an image, a metaphor that captures the essence of what's happening. Imagine this. You walk into a room full of mirrors. But these mirrors don't reflect what you look like. They reflect who you are, your choices, your courage, your growth, your compromises, your fears, your potential. Now imagine that everyone in that room is forced to look into those mirrors and see themselves clearly. Not the story they tell themselves about who they are, but the truth. The gap between who they could be and who they've settled for being. That's what your success does. You didn't mean to be a mirror. You didn't set out to expose anyone. You didn't wake up one morning and decide to make people feel inadequate. You just lived your life. You took risks when they felt impossible. You worked when you wanted to quit. You bet on yourself when everyone said you should play it safe. You chose growth over comfort, possibility over security. And in doing so, you held up a reflection that others couldn't ignore. When they look at you, they don't see you. They see everything they're not. They see the risks they didn't take, the dreams they abandoned, the excuses they accepted, the comfort they chose over courage. You're not their enemy, you're their conscience. And most people, as Nietzsche understood, would rather silence their conscience than obey it. Here's another way to think about it. You are a light. Think about what light does. It doesn't try to reveal things. It doesn't have an agenda. It simply shines. And in shining, It illuminates whatever is in the room. Light reveals the dust in the corner, the cracks in the wall, the mess that's been accumulating in the darkness. It's not judgmental. It's not cruel. It's just doing what light does, making things visible. Your success is that light. It illuminates the gap between where people are and where they wanted to be. It reveals the distance between their potential and their reality. And that gap, that distance, that revelation, it's unbearable. So they have two choices: close the gap or turn off the light. Closing the gap requires work, real, uncomfortable, humbling work. It means admitting they've been stuck. It means confronting their fear. It means taking responsibility for the years they spent waiting, wishing, hoping things would change without changing themselves. It means looking in the mirror and accepting what they see. But turning off the light? That's easy. They just stop looking at you. They distance themselves. They redefine success so that yours doesn't count. They reclaim their comfort by eliminating the comparison. And you, the light, are left standing alone, still shining, but now surrounded by people who have deliberately closed their eyes. This is the price of illumination. This is the cost of becoming who you were meant to be. Not everyone can handle your light. Not everyone wants to see what it reveals. And that's not your fault. You can't make yourself dimmer so that people feel comfortable staying in the dark. Part 4. The hidden consequences. The cost of being the mirror. This silent envy doesn't just hurt in the moment. It leaves scars. It changes you. It shapes how you move through the world and how you relate to your own success. Let me walk you through the hidden costs, the ways that other people's envy becomes your burden. First, you start to doubt yourself. When the people you trust pull away, you start to wonder, did I do something wrong? Am I becoming someone I don't recognize? Should I have stayed small to keep them close? You begin to internalize their discomfort as your fault. You shrink your joy to make them comfortable. You apologize for your success. You downplay your achievements. You hide your happiness. And slowly, imperceptibly, you start to believe that being visible is the same as being selfish, that taking up space is wrong, that shining your light means casting others in shadow. This is a lie. But it's a lie that feels true when you're standing alone, when the people who promised to stand with you have disappeared. Second, you feel guilty for growing. Success starts to feel like a betrayal. Every new win is accompanied by a pang of guilt. What will they think? Will this push them further away? Am I leaving people behind? And so you learn to hide your celebrations. You stop sharing good news. You minimize your victories. You celebrate in secret, alone, with the door closed and the lights off. You become smaller so they can feel bigger. But here's what happens. You don't just shrink your success. You shrink yourself. You learn that your growth is a problem. You internalize the message that who you're becoming is wrong. And over time, you stop growing altogether. Not because you've reached your potential, but because the cost of growth, the loneliness, the guilt, the loss feels too high. Third, you lose your foundation. The people who were supposed to be your foundation crumble. The friends who knew you when, who were there through the hard times, who promised they'd always have your back, they leave. And suddenly, you're succeeding in a vacuum. You have everything you worked for, the career, the money, the recognition, and no one to share it with. No one who remembers where you started. No one who understands what it took to get here. The loneliness at the top is real, and it's sharper, more painful than you imagined. Because it's not just physical isolation, it's emotional abandonment by the people who mattered most. Fourth, you attract the wrong people. As old friends fade, new people appear, but not always for the right reasons. Some are drawn to your success for what they can take from it. They want access, not connection. They want proximity to your light, not to understand your journey. They compliment you, but you can feel the agenda beneath the words. They celebrate you, but only in ways that benefit them. They want to be seen with you, to borrow your credibility, to ride your momentum. And so you find yourself surrounded by applause that feels empty, by friendships that feel transactional, by a crowd of people who know your name, but not your story. Fifth, you harden. After enough rejection, enough silence, enough subtle sabotage, you build walls. You stop sharing. You stop trusting. You tell yourself you don't need anyone, that success is enough, that you're better off alone. You develop a thick skin. You become cynical about friendship, suspicious of compliments, wary of anyone who gets too close. But deep down, you know the truth. You didn't want to be alone. You just wanted to be celebrated by the people who mattered. And when that didn't happen, you decided it was safer not to need anyone at all. Sixth, you question your own success. Perhaps most damaging of all, you begin to question whether your success was worth it. You look at what you've achieved and what you've lost, and you wonder if you made the right choice. Would it have been better to stay small, to keep the friends, to maintain the comfort of familiar struggle? You start to believe that maybe they were right, that success did change you, that ambition is selfish, that growth requires leaving good people behind. And in those dark moments, you consider going backward, shrinking, apologizing, proving that you're still the person they want you to be. This is the final victory of envy. It makes you regret your own light. Part 5. The lesson. How to navigate the envy of others. So what do? How do you handle the silence, the distance, the quiet resentment of people you once called friends? How do you protect yourself from the consequences we just explored? First, don't take it personally. This is the hardest lesson, but the most important. Their envy is not about you, it's about them. You are not responsible for their insecurity. You didn't cause their stagnation. You didn't force them to compare themselves to you. You simply lived your life, and they chose to measure theirs against it. Nietzsche said it best: the snake which cannot cast its skin has to die. As well, the minds which are prevented from changing their opinions, they cease to be mind. If they cannot celebrate your growth, it's because they've refused to grow themselves. They've hardened into a fixed identity. They've decided that who they are now is who they'll always be. And your evolution is an insult to that decision. That's their burden to carry, not yours. When someone goes silent after your success, remember, you're not seeing their opinion of you. You're seeing their opinion of themselves. The darkness they see isn't your shadow, it's their own. Second, set boundaries without guilt. You don't owe anyone your smallness. You don't owe them your limitations. You don't owe them a version of yourself that makes them comfortable. If they need you to fail to feel good about themselves, they don't love you. They love the version of you that made them feel superior. And that's not friendship. That's codependence, disguised as connection. It's okay to outgrow people. It's okay to move forward without them. You don't have to shrink to keep the peace. You don't have to apologize for becoming who you were always meant to be. Setting boundaries might feel harsh. It might feel like you're the one being cruel, the one abandoning the friendship. But boundaries aren't walls, they're gates. They're not about keeping everyone out. They're about protecting what matters most. And what matters most is your continued growth, your light, your refusal to make yourself smaller for the comfort of others. Third, find your real tribe. Not everyone will envy your success. There are people out there, rare but real, who will cheer for you without reservation. Who will celebrate your wins as if they were their own. Who will see your growth and feel inspired, not diminished. These are the people who understand that your success doesn't diminish them, it expands what's possible. These are the people who see your light and think, if they can do it, maybe I can too. These are the people who want to rise with you, not pull you back down. Find these people, invest in them, build with them, create communities of mutual elevation, where everyone's success lifts everyone else. They won't be your old friends, at least not all of them. Some will come from unexpected places. Some will be strangers who became allies. Some will be people who found you because of your light, because they were looking for permission to shine themselves. Your real tribe is out there. Don't settle for people who only loved you when you were small. Fourth, be compassionate, but don't enable. You can understand their pain without absorbing it. You can empathize with their struggle without making yourself smaller to accommodate it. Compassion doesn't mean staying small. It doesn't mean hiding your light. It doesn't mean pretending you haven't grown to make them feel better about their stagnation. Compassion means wishing them well, hoping they find their own path, recognizing that their journey is different from yours, and letting them go if they can't walk beside you anymore. You can love someone and still leave them behind. You can care about their well-being and still prioritize your growth. These things are not contradictory. The most compassionate thing you can do is refuse to participate in their narrative of limitation. By continuing to grow, by refusing to shrink, you prove that change is possible. You become living evidence that the excuses they've accepted are just that, excuses. Maybe they'll see that one day. Maybe your continued success will eventually inspire rather than intimidate. Maybe they'll do their own work and close the gap. Or maybe they won't, and that's okay too. You can't save people who don't want to be saved. Fifth, keep shining. The worst thing you can do, the absolute worst, is dim your light to make others comfortable. Because here's the truth. Your light isn't just for you. It's for the people who are still in the dark, looking for a way out. Somewhere, someone is watching you. Someone who feels stuck, scared, unsure if they can do it. Someone who's been told they're not smart enough, not talented enough, not worthy enough to succeed. And your success, your visibility, your courage, your refusal to stay small is the proof they need that it's possible. Your light gives them permission to try. Your growth shows them a path forward. Your refusal to apologize for your success teaches them that they don't have to apologize either. Don't let the envy of a few extinguish the hope you give to many. Every time you shrink yourself, you rob someone else of inspiration. Every time you hide your success, you teach someone else to hide theirs. Every time you apologize for growing, you reinforce the idea that growth requires apology. Keep shining, not arrogantly, not to prove anything, but simply because that's who you are now, because you've worked too hard to go back, because the world needs more light, not less. Sixth, redefine success on your terms. Don't let other people's envy make you question what success means. Don't let their redefinition of values make you doubt your own. Yes, success has costs. Yes, growth requires sacrifice. Yes, you've lost some people along the way. But you've also gained. You've gained confidence, capability, freedom. You've gained the knowledge that you can do hard things. You've gained a life that's yours, built on your terms, aligned with your values. That matters, that counts, that's real. Don't let anyone convince you that the price you paid wasn't worth the prize you won. Only you get to decide that. Only you know what it cost and what it's worth. And if you decide it was worth it, if you look at your life now and feel proud, fulfilled, grateful, then it was worth it, period. Their opinion doesn't matter. Their judgment doesn't count. Their envy doesn't diminish your achievement. You climbed the mountain. You earned the view. Don't let people at the bottom convince you the summit was worthless just because they never made the climb. Part 6. The deeper truth. Envy reveals character. Here's something Nietzsche understood that most people miss. Envy is a test. Not a test of your worth. You don't need to prove that. Your success already proved it. But a test of other people's character. A revelation of who they really are beneath the performance of friendship. When you succeed, you don't change people. You reveal them. You expose what they value, what they fear, what they're willing to sacrifice, what they're capable of celebrating. Success is a filter. It separates the people who genuinely care about your well-being from those who only cared about your role in their story. The friend who cheered for you when you were struggling but goes silent when you succeed. They liked you better when you needed them. Your dependence made them feel valuable. Your weakness made them feel strong. They weren't supporting you. They were using your struggle to feel better about themselves. The friend who minimizes your achievements. They're protecting their own ego. Your success threatens the story they've told themselves about why they haven't succeeded. If you can do it, then maybe they could have too. And that means their failure wasn't fate, it was choice. So they have to make your success seem easy, lucky, unearned. Otherwise, they'd have to face their own responsibility. The friend who creates distance, they're choosing comfort over connection. They'd rather lose you than face their own stagnation. Your presence has become a mirror, and they don't like what they see, so they close their eyes and walk away. And here's the hard part, the part no one wants to hear. You can't fix this. You can't love them into celebrating you. You can't shrink enough to make them feel big. You can't dim your light enough to make them comfortable in the dark. All you can do is accept the truth and move forward. Because in the end, the people who truly love you will not be threatened by your light. They'll bask in it. They'll reflect it. They'll add their own light to yours until the whole room glows. They'll celebrate your wins because they understand that your success doesn't diminish them. They'll support your growth because they're committed to their own. They'll stand beside you at the summit because they climbed their own mountain and know what it takes. These are your people, and if you haven't found them yet, you will. Because light attracts light, courage recognizes courage, growth calls to growth. The people who can't handle your success were never meant to be in this chapter of your life. They were characters in an earlier story, important for that season, but not built for this one. And that's not sad, that's just true. Every level of life requires a different version of you, and every version of you attracts different people. As you grow, your circle changes. Not because you've become arrogant or different, but because you've become more yourself. And some people can only love the version of you that made them comfortable. Let them go, with gratitude for what was, with compassion for where they are, but with commitment to where you're going. You don't owe anyone your stagnation. You don't owe them a version of yourself that no longer exists. You don't owe them your silence, your smallness, your light turned down to a flicker. You owe yourself the full expression of who you're becoming. And you owe the world the gift of your complete presence, undiminished, unapologetic, unashamed. Part 7, the invitation, become the light you needed. So here's where we arrive, at the end of this journey through the psychology of envy, the pain of silent resentment, the cost of other people's discomfort with your growth. Here's the invitation, the challenge, the path forward. Become the light you needed when you were in the dark. Remember what it felt like before you succeeded. Remember the fear, the doubt, the voice that said you weren't ready, weren't worthy, weren't enough. Remember looking around for proof that people like you could make it, searching for someone who looked like you, talked like you, started where you started, and made it to where you wanted to go. Remember how much you needed to see someone shine. Now you're that someone. Now you're the proof. Now you're the light that someone else is searching for in their darkness. And every time you dim yourself to make others comfortable, you rob that person of their beacon. Every time you hide your success, you make it harder for the next person to believe success is possible. Every time you apologize for your growth, you teach someone else that growth requires apology. But every time you shine fully, boldly, unapologetically, you give someone else permission to do the same. You become evidence. You become possibility. You become hope. That's the real purpose of your success. Not to prove anything to the people who doubted you, not to make up for past failures or fill some void in your soul, but to be a light for the people still finding their way. Your success is not selfish. It's generous. It's a gift to everyone who comes after you, everyone who's still afraid, everyone who needs to see that it can be done. So shine. Not because you need to prove anything, not because you're trying to make anyone jealous, but because that's what lights do. They shine, and in shining, they make the path visible for others. So let me leave you with this final truth. If your success makes people uncomfortable, that's not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something right. You are not responsible for being the mirror. You didn't ask to reflect their choices back at them. You simply lived authentically, boldly, unapologetically, and that was enough to reveal what they've been avoiding. Nietzsche once wrote, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." Your flight is not an insult to those on the ground. Your wings are not a judgment of their walking. But to those who have convinced themselves that flying is impossible, your success is unbearable. So fly anyway, because in the end, every one of us is a mirror. We reflect back to others what they're capable of, what they're avoiding, what they've accepted, what they've surrendered. The real question is not whether people will look at their reflection, it's whether you'll keep shining even when they turn away. And here's the final truth, the one that will set you free. The applause that turns into envy was never really applause. It was tolerance. It was conditional. It was given only as long as you stayed within the bounds of their comfort. But real love, real friendship, real support, that grows louder the higher you climb. So don't mourn the silence of those who only cheered when you were small. Celebrate the roar of those who see your success and say, "Keep going, I'm right behind you." And if you haven't found those people yet, keep shining. They're looking for your light. They need your example. They're waiting for proof that it's possible. Be that proof. Be the light that someone else needs to find their way. Be the mirror that reflects back, not shame, but possibility. Because the world doesn't need more people playing small. It needs more people brave enough to shine. And you've already proven you're brave enough. The applause that turns into envy is not your burden to carry. It's theirs. It's their work to do, their shadow to face, their mirror to look into. You've done your work. You've faced your fears. You've taken the risks they weren't willing to take. You've bet on yourself when the odds felt impossible. You've climbed when they chose to stay comfortable. And now you're standing in the light, and some people can't bear to look at you. That's not your problem to solve. Your only job, your only responsibility is to keep being exactly who you've become, to keep growing, to keep reaching, to keep shining. Not for them, not to prove anything, not to show off or make them feel bad, but for you, and for everyone who's still climbing. Let me tell you something about mirrors that most people don't understand. A mirror doesn't judge. It doesn't criticize. It doesn't have an agenda. It simply reflects what's there. And if someone looks into a mirror and doesn't like what they see, the problem isn't with the mirror. The problem is with what they've been avoiding. You are that mirror, not by choice, not by design, but simply by existing in your truth, in your growth, in your refusal to stay small. And when people see themselves reflected in your success, when they see the gap between who they are and who they could have been, they have a choice. They can close the gap. They can do the work. They can face their own shadow and begin their own climb. Or they can blame the mirror. They can call you arrogant, changed, different. They can rewrite the story so that your success becomes your failure. They can distance themselves, minimize your achievement, and convince themselves that the mirror lied. Most will choose the second option because it's easier, because it requires no change, no risk, no confrontation with their own choices. And that's sad. But it's not your tragedy, it's theirs. Your tragedy would be dimming your light because they can't handle the reflection. Your tragedy would be shrinking back into smallness because your bigness makes them uncomfortable. Your tragedy would be apologizing for becoming exactly who you were meant to be. Don't do that. Don't give them that power. Don't let their envy become your cage. Here's what I can promise you. The loneliness you feel right now, that hollow ache of celebrating alone, of achieving without witness, of standing at the summit, and realizing you're standing there without the people you thought would be beside you, it won't last forever. As you continue to grow, as you continue to shine, something remarkable happens. You start to attract people who aren't threatened by your light, people who have done their own work, people who have faced their own mirrors and made peace with what they saw, people who are so committed to their own growth that your growth inspires them rather than intimidates them. These people exist. They're out there, and they're looking for you just as much as you're looking for them. They're the ones who will celebrate your wins without qualification, who will ask about your success with genuine curiosity, who will say, "Tell me everything," and mean it, who will share your announcements with pride, who will introduce you as my friend who's doing amazing things without a hint of resentment. They're the ones who understand that there's enough light for everyone, that your success doesn't diminish theirs, that rising together is better than staying small together. And when you find them, when you build that community of mutual elevation, you'll realize something profound. The people you lost weren't your people. They were placeholders. They were characters in an earlier chapter, necessary for that season, but not meant for this one. And the people you found, they're your tribe, your real tribe. The ones who will walk with you not just through the valley, but up the mountain. Not just through the struggle, but through the success. These are the relationships that matter. These are the connections that last. These are the people worth investing in, building with, growing alongside. So yes, you lost some people when you succeeded, but you didn't lose the right people. You lost the people who could only love the small version of you. And in doing so, you made space for people who can love all of you, the struggling version, the growing version, the successful version, and the version that's still becoming. So here's my challenge to you, here at the end of this exploration. Stop apologizing, stop shrinking, stop hiding your light because someone else prefers the dark. Stop feeling guilty for growing. Stop second-guessing your success. Stop wondering if you did something wrong simply by doing something right. You climbed the mountain, you earned the view, you did the work, you faced the fear, you took the risk. And if some people can't celebrate that, if some people go silent, if some people turn away, that's information. That's clarity. That's them showing you exactly who they are and what they're capable of. Believe them, and then keep moving, keep shining, keep growing, keep becoming. Not despite their envy, but independent of it. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right, to prove that you were right to bet on yourself, right to take the risk, right to believe that you were capable of more. Because you were, and you are, and you will be. The applause that turns into envy is just noise. It's the sound of people confronting their own limitations and deciding to blame you for the discomfort. But the applause that matters, the real applause, the lasting applause, comes from people who understand what it took, who see not just where you are, but where you came from, who recognize the courage, the sacrifice, the relentless commitment to becoming. That applause is quieter, smaller, but it's real. And it's worth more than the conditional celebration of 1,000 people who only loved you when you were struggling. In the end, the question is not whether people will be comfortable with your success. They won't be. Some of them, maybe many of them. The question is whether you'll be comfortable with your success despite their discomfort, whether you'll own what you've achieved, whether you'll stand in your light without apology, whether you'll keep growing even when growth costs you relationships, whether you'll keep flying even when people on the ground insist that flying is impossible, dangerous, selfish, wrong, whether you'll be the mirror that reflects possibility, even when people would rather break the mirror than face what it shows them. I believe you will, because you didn't come this far to shrink back now. You didn't do all that work to hide the results. You didn't face all those fears to go back to playing small. You're done with that chapter. You've outgrown it. And the people who can't grow with you will be left behind, not because you abandoned them, but because they refuse to move forward. That's not your burden. That's not your guilt. That's not your responsibility. Your only responsibility is to keep being the light you needed when you were in the dark. To keep shining, to keep growing, to keep showing people what's possible, and to trust that the right people, your real people, will find you in the light. They always do. So here we are, at the end of this journey, at the answer to the question we started with. Why do friends go silent when you succeed? Because your success is their mirror, and they don't like what they see. But that's not your problem. Your only question, the only one that matters, is this: will you keep reflecting, even when they refuse to look? I think you already know the answer. Now go shine.